Mr. C, has I had any trouble? I was gonna tell you, then I leave it to you. I was born down amongst the slaves. I knows all about slavery 'cause I've been one of them myself. Well, sir, my old man, that's my husband. He was loving and kind to me, just as kind as you is to your own wife. And we had children, 7 children. And we loved them children just the same as you loves your children. They was black, but the Lord can't make no children so black but what they mother loves them and wouldn't give them up. No, not for anything that's in this whole world. Well, sir, I was raised in Old Guinea, but my mother, she was raised in Maryland. And my soul, she was terrible when she'd get started. My Lord, but she make the fur fly. When she get into them tantrums, she always had one word that she said. She'd straighten herself up and put her fists on her hips and say, I want you to understand that I wasn't born in the mash to be fooled by trash. I was one of the old blue hens chickens I is. 'Cause you see, that's what folks down in Maryland call themselves. And they's proud of it. Well, that was her word. I don't ever forget it because she said so much. And because she said it one day when my little Henry tore his wrist awful and most busted his head. Right up at the top of his forehead. And the Negroes didn't fly around fast enough to tend to him. And when they talked back at her, she up and she says, looky here, she says, I want you Negroes to understand that I wasn't born in the mash to be fooled by trash. I's one of the old blue hens chickens I is. And then she cleared that kitchen and bandaged up the child herself. So I says that word too when I was riled. Well, by me by, my old mistress says she broke. And she got to sell all the Negroes on the place. Now when I hear that, they go and sell us off at auction in Richmond, oh, the good gracious, I know what that mean. They put chains on us and put us on a stand as high as this porch, 20 feet high. And all of the people stood around, crowds and crowds, and they'd come up there and look at us all round and squeeze our arm and make us get up and walk. And then say, this one too old, or this one lame, or this one don't mount to much. And they sold my old man and took him away. And they began to sell my children and take them away. And I began to cry. And the man said, shut up, y'all damn blubbering, and hit me on the mouth with his hand. And when the last one was gone by my little Henry, I grabbed him close up to my breast. So when I rise up and say, you shan't take him away, I says. I'll kill the man that touches him. I says, but my little Henry whispered and said, I'm gonna run away, and then I work and buy your freedom. Oh, bless the child, he was so damn good. But they got him. They got him, the men did. But I took and tear the clothes most off of him and beat him over the head with my chain. And they gave it to me too, but I didn't mind that. Well, there was my old man gone and all my children, all my 7 children. And 6 of them I ain't set eyes on again to this day. And that's 22 years ago last Easter. The man done brought me belong in New Bern and he took me there. Well, by me by, the years roll on, and the war to come. And my master, he was a Confederate colonel, and I was his family's cook. So when the Unions took that town, they all run away, left me all by myself with the other Negroes in the master's house. So the big Union officers move in there, and they ask me, would I cook for them? Lord bless you, said I. That's why it's for. They weren't no small fry officers, mind you. They was the biggest they is. And the way they made them soldiers mosey round, the general, he told me to boss that kitchen. And he said, if anybody come meddling with you, you just make them walk chalk. Don't you be afeard, he says. You's amongst friends now. Well, I thinks to myself, if my little Henry ever got a chance to run away, he'd make it to the north, of course. So one day I comes in there where the big officers was in the parlor, and I drop a curtsy, son up, and told them about my Henry. They are listening to my troubles just the same as if I was white folks. And I said, what I come for is because if he got away and got up north, what your gentleman come from, you might have seen him. Maybe and could tell me so as I could find him again. He was very little, and he had a scar on his left wrist and at the top of his forehead. Then they looked mournful, and the general say, how long since you lost him? And I say, 13 years. Then the general say, he wouldn't be little no more now. He's a man. I never thought of that before. He was only that little fella to me, yet I never thought about him growing up and being big. But I see it then. None of the gentlemen had run across him, so they couldn't do nothing for me. But all that time, though I didn't know it, my Henry was run off to the north. Years and years, and he was a barber too and worked for himself. And by and by, when the war come, he ups and says, I's done barbering, he says. I's gonna find my old mammy, unless she's dead. So he sold out and went to where they was recruiting and hired himself out to the colonel for his servant. And then he went to all through the battles everywhere, hunting for his own mammy. Yes, indeed, he'd hired the first one officer and then another, till he ransacked the whole South. But you see, I didn't know nothing about this. How was I gonna know it? Well, one night we had a big soldier ball. The soldier's dad, newborn, was always having balls and carrying on. They had him in my kitchen heaps of times because it was so big. Mind you, I was down on such doings because my place was wild with officers, and it rasped me to have them common soldiers cavorting around my kitchen like that. I always stood around and kept things straight, I did. And sometimes I'd get my dander up and then I'd make them clear that kitchen mine, I tell you. Well, one night, it was a Friday night. There comes a whole platoon of a Negro regiment that was on guard at the house. The house was headquarters, you know, and then I was just a billin'. Man, I was just a bloomin'. I swelled round. I was just itching for him to do something for to start me. And then they was a waltzing and a dancing. Ma, but they was having a time. And I just swelling up. Pretty soon along comes such a spruce young Negro a-sailing round the room with a yellow wrench round his waist. And round and round they went. Enough to make a body drunk to look at him. And when they got abreast of me, they went to kind of bounce around, first on one leg and then on the other, and smiling at my big red turban and making fun. And I ups and said, get along with you, rubbish. The young man's face kind of changed, and all of a sudden for about a second. But then he went to smile again, same as he was before. Well, about this time, in come some Negroes that played music and belonged to the band, and they could never get along without putting on airs. And the very first air they put on that night, I lit into them. They laughed, and that made me worse. The rest of the Negroes got to laughing, and then my soul alive, but I was hot. I was just a-blazing. I just straightened myself up, just as I is now, plumb to the ceiling. Monson, I dig my fists into my hips, and I says, look at here. I says, I want you Negroes to understand that I won't born in the man to be fooled by trash. I's one of the old blue hens chickens, I is. And then I see that young man stand and staring and stiff, looking kind of up at the ceiling like he's forgot something, as if he couldn't remember it no more. Well, I just marched on them Negroes, so looking like a general, and they just came away before me and out the door. And as the young man was going out, I hear him say to another Negro, Jim, he says, you go along and tell Captain I'll be on hand about 8 o'clock in the morning. There's something on my mind, he says. I don't sleep no more this night. You go along, he says, and leave me alone by my own self. This was about 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, about 7, I was up on hand getting the officers' breakfast. I was a-stooping down by the stove, just the same as if your foot was the stove. And I opened the stove door with my right hand, so pushing it back just like as I pushed your foot. And I just got the pan of hot biscuits in my hand and was about to raise up, when I see a black face coming under mine, and the eyes are looking up into mine, just as I was looking you close to your face right now. And I just stopped right there and never budged. Just gazed and gazed so, and the pan began to tremble, and all of a sudden, I knowed. The pan dropped on the floor, and I grabbed his left hand and shoved back his sleeve, just so as I'm doing to you. And then I goes for his forehead, and I push his head back so, and boy, if I says, if you ain't my Henry, what is you doing with this well on your wrist and that scar on your forehead? Dear Lord God of heaven be praised, I got my own again. Oh no, Mr. C, I ain't had no trouble and no joy. Okay, as a Title IX officer, I'm aware that there are different types of harassment. It's not just sexual harassment. There's racial harassment. There's gender harassment. And in a true story, we as a group made a collective decision to not use the N-word as it's used, and as was used back in those times. I, as being the reader, felt very uncomfortable even saying it. And even to say Negro is a little bit trying, for lack of a better phrase. But that's part of our history. And so I felt it led to the authenticity of the piece by saying Negro instead of the N-word as it's written.